discussing a very, very critical topic, a topic that touches almost, you would say, all aspects of life. Talk about social, talk about the economy, and talk about the politics as well. But most importantly, it's a topic that is at the center, I would imagine, of most households in Uganda. Uganda is an agro-based economy. We all appreciate the fact that a bulk or majority of our people actually depend on agriculture. And where we are today, we have seen how a number of things have changed in that sector. We can no longer do things the way we've been doing them because of what many have come to term as climate change. We can no longer receive rains in the times we used to receive them. Seasons are changing. And because of that, the impact has been quite immense and enormous. And because of that, a lot of discussion has now shifted and is sitting in the space of how do we make our production sustainable. In other words, if you want to look at it broadly, how do we sustain life and living on Earth? And today, we're again proceeding with our topics, a special series on greening, of course with our partners, ABI, and then we have Enterprise Uganda as well coming on board to support, and then Minister of Finance, Planning and Economic Development. So in the studio today I have special guests, and we're going to be talking about climate change adaptation. We have a gentleman, a businessman, who is dealing with farmers on the ground. He's sitting within the agricultural value chain for now. He's going to introduce himself, and he's going to tell us what is being done, what needs to be done to actually make the majority of Ugandans who are the farmers climate change adaptive, if I may borrow the word or the phrasing. Because sometimes we tend to generalize these things and we may not really pay good attention to the specifics, and those are very, very critical. So, Amos, please greet our viewers.
Hello viewers, my name is Amos Kasigi. I hope everyone is having a good Sunday. I want to thank NTV for giving us this opportunity to discuss issues of national importance. I hope we get some learning from here. Thank you.
Beautiful. We have in the studio, of course, Charles Ochichi, our resident coach. Charles, you're most welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, and I also greet the viewers for this afternoon. It's a kind of a conversation that this country and the rest of the globe will have to start engaging in, because it's no longer in the future, it's right here.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Great, great, great. Now, quite interesting, Charles. You know, today's topic is an interesting one. We've had generic discussions about, you know, the temperatures rising, the ice melting, and of course here we are seeing a lot of extreme weather as well happening. But it's again quite interesting that not much has been put in understanding the person who is supposed to make the changes happen. That is the farmer, or the people that are the lower end or the bottom of the pyramid, who are the farmers. And I don't know how you look at that, but maybe before we go into that space, I don't know what has touched you this week before we go into the discussion for today.
I think this week has got things that relate to what we are talking about today.
Yeah.
We had some dramatic happenings in Turkey and Syria, where even that incident of earthquake is said to be having a link with climatic changes and weather changes. But also within the same week, we're also experiencing the kind of unprecedented heat waves that we've never been able to go through, right in the city of Kampala, right across the country. It will be hot right from morning up to the next morning, 6 a.m. You wake up in the morning, the heat begins to hit you at 9 o'clock. But it will go on until night and then continue up to 6 a.m. So that clearly is a message to all of us that what we used to think was climatic challenges that are being talked about in the Western world. These are things that are right now with us. and we must begin to confront them.
Absolutely.
And do so in practical manner. And that's why I'm so proud about this show, because this show is about speaking about a concept, but bring a practitioner to say, I'm living it, and as I live it, beware of the following learnings and lessons. And if this thing is going to work out, this is what I'm wearing, and this is where I'm feeling my pain in the shoes. So it's such a beautiful thing to have practicing entrepreneurs being part of this show. And for the viewers, I want them to know that this show is not about theory. This show is about practicing entrepreneurs. And at the end of each segment or each session, there will always be takeaways.
Beautiful.
Viewer and for the government.
Indeed, indeed. Actually, everyone, policymakers and all the others.
Correct.
Great, great. Now, viewers, we're going to take a very short moment, and we're going to look at the montage. Of course, Amos has introduced himself, so we need to know what exactly Amos does and what impact he's creating on the ground, so that we get to appreciate, you know, the topic we are discussing. Just to remind you, we are looking at greening, and within the greening, we are looking at adaptation. How are we adapting? Of course, Amos has already mentioned a bit what he does. He's the MD, Age Trading Company, and it deals in coffee. He buys coffee from the farmer right from the grassroots. And we all know how important coffee is for this country. But then most importantly, we all know how important farmers are to this country, but most importantly, to the greening agenda. Let's take a look at this video montage, and then we'll pick the discussion from there.
Last year, Uganda witnessed one of the high spikes in food prices in the recent past. The rise in food prices in turn contributed to the rise in the prices of other commodities, or what economists call inflation. Today, this is above 10%. The reason for this, according to observers, was simply failed rains. Others blamed it on the changing crop growing seasons. To experts, however, these are telltale signs that climate change is here, and one of the drivers are the climate-insensitive agronomical practices.
Environmental protection, things to do with soil conservation that really help farmers to protect the environment. When it comes to the environment, it's the core that when we are teaching farmers good agronomical practices, it's not all about the coffee they are growing, but it's also about the environment in which they are growing the coffee. These are things that most farmers overlook, and in turn, they come with negative repercussions.
Today, since we already live with this challenge as evidenced in the frequent recurrence of extreme weather patterns among others, the discussion on adaptation to climate change has gained currency. For Uganda, which is an agro-based economy, the starting point has been the farm.
Tukozesa obusa obutagula bijimusa bizungu kubanga byonoona obutonde bw'ensi. Kubanga singa tukozesa obusa ntugenda mu maaso, emmwanyi ekola kiragala. Nekola kiragala ne tufuna bulungi embeera y'obudde, era bw'ondooza bw'ogitunuulira erabika bulungi okusinga luli twali twettanira nnyo ebijimusa bizungu, naye kati tetukyabikozesa, twabivaako. Kati engeri gye tulunda ente tukozesa busa.
Such simple techniques are today changing and impacting lives of many in agriculture production. Indeed, the same view is shared by this farmer as well.
Okutaasa obutonde neeyambisiza okuba nti nnunda ente ne nnunda embizzi ne nsobola okufunamu obusa okusinga bye nkozesa ennyo mu nnimiro yange oba mu nnimiro zange. Kati obusa obwo bunkoledde ku birime byombi ebibiri, bwe nteeka ku mwanyi n'ekitooke nga kinona okwo, ne nsobola okufisa emmere gye nsobola okulyako n'abantu bange, ate ne ntunda nako. Kati nagenda okwetegera okulaba nga ebijimusa ebizungu byonoona obutonde, ne nsalawo ne neeyambisa nnyo obusa. Enjawulo gye nayongera okufuna nti bwe nakozesa ebyo ebijimusa ebyaffe, neyongera ku bungi bwa wututani, ne neeyongera n'okufuna emmere ate nga nnungi.
While much emphasis is invested in looking at climate change from the prism of rising food prices in the market, there's a bigger impact to farmers who solely rely on agriculture as a livelihood source and income source.
N'ekitongole bye kyannyamba ne kimpa biogas nakendeeza okulabika nga nfumbisa amanda oba enku, nasobola okuba nga nfumbisiza ku biogas okwo. Ebintu okukwasaganya emirimu egyo obulimi n'obutabulamu obulunzi kiyambira ddala okutuuka ku mmwanyi yo nga togiridde kikagga, ab'amalebe nga tebakubbye, nsobodde okukuuma obulungi ebirime byange byennima n'embitunda ku bbeeyi entuufu eriwo, olw'okuba nti nsobola okuba nga nnunda obulimi ne mbuteekamu obulunzi, kwe kusobola okuba nga ndi mu mbeera nga bw'olaba.
Currently, some farmers have become more creative in exploring more climate change adaptive techniques to stay in business, the business of farming.
Kati obutonde bwansi wano waffe omusana gututawaanya nnyo. Omusana bwe gubanga gututawaanya, twazuula nga nze omu kamwa koogera. Kuba waliwo ekiseera bye twakyaza ku baminisita wano bajja ne batukyalira, baasiŋŋaana nsimye ebinnya, ne bambuuza ebinnya bino osimye byaki? Ogenda kusimba bitooke. Ko nze nedda sigenda kusimba bitooke, ngenda kusimba mmwanyi. Ne bambuuza nti ekintu ekyo kisoboka mu binnya bino bitula by'ebitooke. Ko nze nga nze nali maze okukizuula, omusana gututawaanya, be tusima akannya akatono bee kati, oluba okugirabe kuti omusana nga gutukola ki? Omusana nga gutukuba. Faamu namba yesinga ndi lwabenga tulina bidiba by'amazzi. Naye kati bwe naaba nkutambuzaako nimero ojja kubuuza nti kiragala ono okubeera mukikoze mutya? Okulembeka kw'amazzi kuno mukukoze mutya? Mukukoze mutya okulembeka kw'amazzi kuno? Twaddira ne ŋŋamba nti okubeera kulembeka kw'amazzi kuno n'ennyongeza okusima ekinnya. Ne ŋŋamba nfusima fuuti 3 wansi n'enzika fuuti meka 2. Kati kiyamba ekinnya ekyo bwe tuba tusimba emmwanyi, wansi tuziikako fuuti egi emu. Kati tubeera nga tuleseewo efuuti eyo ng'esobola tukuumira ki? Amazzi. Enkuba ne beba ng'etonnye, enkuba ekulukuta, ekinnya ekyo ne kiba nga kikoze eki? Kikoze levo y'amazzi bulungi nnyo, ne gaba nga gakuumirwamu bulungi nnyo. Neno bwe mala okusakaatira beeti emmwanyi ng'ebadde ekuze, esakaatira beeti neba ng'ebikka ekiki? Ekinnya ekyo. Era bwe nazuula ekintu ekyo n'okuweesa kw'emmwanyi kwaffe lwabenge kwakendeera.
To players like age, which sits a little above the farming value chain, climate change adaptation means tooling the farmers with the requisite skills to stay in business.
The company believe that for us to be sustainable, we need the farmers. And as age, we have looked into this and realized that if we build the capacity of the farmers, we are able also to sustain our business because the volumes come from the farmers and the farmers are able to give us the volumes that we need to take our business forward, to make it going concern. So in this, we partnered with ABI Development Limited in 2019 and came up with a proposal to help farmers in our regions where we procure coffee so that they can have the capacity to give us the quality that we need, but also the quantities that we need to serve our buyers in different countries. Before we began our partnership, we as a company were struggling, one, to meet our volumes, but we were also struggling with quality. One, the quality that was coming in from the farmers was below average, not acceptable by UCDA. That was, we are getting coffees of 65% outturn by then, but now coffees have improved to 75% outturn. And by then we are doing volumes. I'll talk about the exports. We are doing around 50 containers a year, but now we have reached 250 containers a year. And this is due to the volumes that have been coming out through the project. Because now farmers are able to produce more, our volumes that we can handle have improved.
Welcome back, viewers, and I think that now gives us an idea of what we're talking about. And when we talk about climate change adaptation, you know, from the mind of the farmer, from the space of the farm, we can now relate. Charles, I don't know what your quick thoughts are before I bring in Amos here.
I think the first thing we need to recognize about a business person is that, first and foremost, they have got that inherent need to make adequate income.
Yes.
So whatever policies and concepts that you introduce them to, they want to know to what extent is this going to relate to his volumes, quality, and ultimately income. As you saw in there was a need for farmers to use available water. But if you didn't explain that in the beginning by saying, for you to trap available water, you are going to dig bigger holes. they would just say, no, this hole is enough. After all, this is a tree. It will go down and look for its own water. Now the man said, so if I dig a bigger hole for my coffee plant, I'll retain more water that is delivered naturally, and my plant will have more water for a better productivity. At that time, the game is done. Yeah. In other words, farmers are logical. Bring your concepts in a manner that makes them connect with their ultimate interest, and the game will be done. So that's the first takeaway that I saw from that montage. The other one also is that you need a value chain, whereby the ordinary farmer who doesn't know where the coffee will end up in has got another person in between who knows how the market operates the other side. So that person will be able to say, by the way, the kind of coffee that's needed the other side is of this quality. So we should cease to imagine primary producers will automatically become exporters. They need people in between there to give them the cushioning of how to appreciate quality aspects, on how to aggregate their volumes, and then generate opportunity for better prices.
Beautiful, beautiful. Thank you, Charles. And this is the point where I bring you in, Amos.
Yes.
I don't know, because having these farmers appreciate what they are doing is a journey.
Yes.
Walk us through, first of all, give us a bit of a digest about Edge Trading Company, which you represent, and that is actually impacting these farmers, and what it took you to actually bring these farmers this far.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Goji. The Edge Trading is a company that is exporting coffee. We started in 2011, but we only started export in 2017. And from 2011 is when we started the journey of working with farmers. The farmers you've seen in that video, people we've been with for a long time. And I can tell you now that you've even seen their factory. With our relationship, we've grown. And as we started Expo in 2017, so then we had ABI partner with us in 2019. Of course, ABI, they are very professional. They had looked at what we are doing as a company and thought that their money was worth with us. So they gave us that grant project that was cost shared, and then we went into the field and started supporting those farmers in promoting the technology. Some of the technologies they had, like those big holes. What we added was the resistant seedlings that ABI supported us to produce in our mother garden and nurseries. So the resistant, if you have that big hole and you plant a resistant variety, then you're already into the environment, because you're not going to stress the environment with having more water, or when the water comes, when the rains are this erratic, you still have your plant conserved and also being able to produce. So when you see there the farmers, and of course, Ochichi, you talked about the business, and I'm assuming you when you talked about the business person or the entrepreneur, maybe you met me, but for us again in our own relationship with the farmers must be business minded.
Very true.
That is what we are telling the farmers. We are telling the farmers the only way of being sustainable is when they are thinking of planting the tree, they are thinking of having a cow, they are thinking of doing some animal farming. Is it profitable? What is the cost? What is the benefit? Do we have some profit? Because otherwise we do not have, they won't have money to reinvest. So farming must be as a family business. And of course now the environment comes in. Already you see that some farmers are already adopting to the environment. they have their technologies. Is it enough? It is not enough. We need them to do more. We need to see bigger trees in their gardens. We need to see more trees planted. We need to see more farmers, because while some of the farmers you've seen are doing those, are adapting to the environment, there are some others around them that
are not doing that.
Actually,
on that point,
yes.
Amos, when I see actually in the montage, one of the farmers, I think the lady, mentioned that it's no longer enough for her to just do crop husbandry.
Exactly.
She had to introduce animals.
Yes.
In order to get manure and move, because manure is organic fertilization or fertilizers for the soil. And when she mentioned that, in my mind I was like, okay, that's another cost. You know, one, you have to get the money to buy the animal.
And you see, she is also doing the biogas.
And then she's doing the biogas, exactly.
And she also mentioned that the biogas system was donated.
Donated, exactly. Now, again, it speaks to the kind of question that I wanted to put to you, is as a person who deals with these people, how do you think, you know, that can be addressed, where we actually encourage more farmers to embrace that? Because it doesn't come freely, or it doesn't come cheaply. In fact, as you think about it, the other gentleman of the holes, he mentioned now he has to dig very deep holes.
Correct.
Like the ones for planting matoke, in order to beat the intermittent dry spells. All that is money. If you're using labor to actually do that.
Correct.
So I see it's a bit of a challenge. Are you able, you know, like now you who's dealing with these farmers on your own to actually pull that off? What would be the more sustainable way to carry it forward?
And as you come to answer Mr. Bwogi's question, here is a farmer who knows that what you are talking about will take a bit of months, if not years, to prove what you are talking about.
Exactly.
Because coffee is not like your mushroom or your maize crop, whereby you do something today, the next week you can almost start seeing it. You are promising this fellow a good yield in 3 years' time.
Yes.
How can he believe you? Or what did it take for them to actually say, I think let's believe you?
First of all, I mean, we are lucky that coffee growing is not new to our country or to our farmers. And the evidences are there that coffee can give you a bit of money or some wealth, or can make, you can get your school fees, like most farmers target. Their target is school fees, food. Once they have those, then the other profitability can come in after. So it wasn't difficult. The difficult part was about, again, the weather, because all the seedlings that we are using were much damaged by the weather. So when we came in and we said we're also working on the seedlings that are resistant to the environment, we also worked out demos. We are supported when we go to the ABI support. We did demos that while the farmers were waiting, our demos were progressing. So a farmer who has waited for 6 months, they pass by the demo and they see the plants flourishing, they are able to come in. So it is again a game of, you can't, because you cannot just tell the farmer, do this. This is what you have to do.
It will be okay.
Yes.
Just do this.
It is the constant communication. You must have the agronomist in the place. You must have, like for us, we had a setup of every 4 groups of 25. There was a lead farmer. So those lead farmers will take them through trainings every other month. So you must be in touch with them. You must be able to move them from one place to another to come and view what other people are doing. We had to travel to the west. These are farmers in the central. So we traveled to the west. We traveled to even to the east, to Mbale, to see how the other farmers are benefiting. Okay, so we had a lot of training. So the whole kind of 4 or 5 years has been, we are talking today, and some of those farmers, you know, especially that group that they developed through the interaction we had. So they decided that every week we are now going to meet, because we are convinced. So as a group, they were meeting every week, and they're not meeting in the town center,
Yes.
but they are meeting on another farmer's garden.
Place.
Garden,
Okay.
not even at home.
Yes.
So we come to your garden this week. If you are doing rubbish, we tell you you are doing rubbish. They come to me next week. If I am doing well, they copy. They come to you. So every single week, there was a farmer visited and their lessons learned. So those things we need, because you see, at the end of the day, when you look at, for example, coffee, when we talk about fetching the second foreign exchange earner for the country, why don't we have time for them? When you look at cash crop as a cash crop, when you look at the people, and me, for me, my only motivation was that, and of course, Boja, I know you're growing coffee. No, I'm sorry, I've not asked you, but so I was meeting these professionals because I'm also a professional in some way, and most of the professionals, most of the people in my age, will tell you in their offices that, for me, school fees came from coffee. And then you ask them if they have coffee, and they say, no, we don't have coffee. So I thought, no, that is not right. You know, if coffee was that profitable and you managed to go to schools and you came out, we need to give it another chance. So the environment now is going to be another challenge. Yes, some of the farmers are adopting, but the adoption is not enough.
Yes.
Because the environment is here with us. The chance we have is that the farmers are seeing this environment live. So when a drought comes in a period when it should not be, they are seeing trees drying. So you have an opportunity to tell farmers that if we don't combat this, if we don't change the way we work, we have a big problem coming. However, it is at a cost. For the farmer to be planting a lot of trees in their coffee tree, they also know that the yield will go down. Now, if the yield goes down with a lot of shade, the environment is better, but the yield is down, is there a compensation for the smaller yield or for the lesser yield?
That's a good point. And this is the point where I want to bring in Charles.
Yes.
Because now we're talking business.
Yes.
We got to be rational. Because you have a farmer that you want to shoulder a certain responsibility for the rest of us to benefit.
Yes.
Because if this farmer plants that tree, it's going to, now I'm not a scientist, but scientists tell us it's going to, you know, suck in that extra carbon dioxide and everything.
Yeah.
For
the
my
sunshine
benefit.
is reduced.
The weather is calmed and all that. But how should we support this farmer? One, to subsidize the cost of making that happen, because this tree is going to come at a cost. Then two, definitely in terms of production, again, before the show I was speaking to Amos here and was telling me that a coffee tree, for instance, which is under a shed, is going to give you less yield or output compared to one which is in an open field. It means that if this farmer plants that tree, it's going to affect him. So he's going to pick the tab for that. So I don't know what your thought process is on that.
Can I just add something?
Yes, please.
So the other thing that the viewers must understand, or they have to understand us very clearly, it's not that the farmers are not dealing with the environment. The farmers are doing their bit. But we know that the bit they are doing is not enough. So we want the farmers to do more, because we know that there are other things that we can do, maybe reduce the diesel cars and the other things that can be done. But we also know, for us as people in coffee and in agriculture, we know that probably the first mitigation is going to be at the tree planting, at the conservation of the soil. So if a farmer chooses to do 2 trees in an acre, we think maybe they can do 5. If you want them to do 5, the cost on the reduction of the output is coming from who? There are 2 things. I also want to add one thing, because last week I was, earlier this week I was in Kigali, and we had an Africa conference, and of course these are the things we are talking about as well. the environment was very key. And there is a new word now that is called regenerative agriculture. So we also discovered that in our discussion that regenerative agriculture is actually not something new. They are the things that will preserve the environment, which we also know about. So for us, our argument was like, if it is new and the farmers are aware, why do we name it, give it a new name? If we give it a new name, okay, but the impact it is going to bring to the farmer, is anybody paying for that? Are we getting better prices for our coffee, for the reduction in production? If it is specialty, can we have people, buyers, confirm that they will buy that coffee at a better price?
I hear you.
So there is
that discussion.
Yes, that discussion is there. That discussion has to happen. The earlier, the better for us to try to engage our farmers, to try and continue to do more to combat the environment. And the climate change.
Great. So in other words, Charles, how do we broaden the discussion to bring in other stakeholders to actually support this? Because it seems we are all in this together.
Let me start by shining light on ABI. Because what you have just done is to demonstrate to the government that there are certain lessons we pick from the experience of age and the local farmer. And if ABI had not necessarily gone that extra mile, we would just keep on having these beautiful words and borrowing them and running around with them, grinning, grinning. What ABI now did was to interact with a person who says, I want to export. But as you're exporting, do you also want to deal with issues to do with productivity and environment? ABI would not necessarily have what you call specialized skills crop by crop. But by working with Edge, Edge is able to say, now when it comes to coffee, there are diseases that are susceptible to drought. Me, as Edge, I'm a business person. I'm not going to distribute seedlings free of charge to farmers for them to benefit, because when they get a resistant crop, they are free to sell anywhere.
Exactly.
So now, but Edge has communicated a message that ABI now says, that is interesting. So what does it take to get the seedlings? And ABI comes and says, okay, if that is what it takes, can we contribute and you also contribute?
Exactly.
On the basis of that, we have just discovered something. Solutions do exist. But to get the shift into those solutions, we need some neutral resources. Today, we've been privileged to have ABI with all these great partners from the Western countries that are saying, let's support this initiative. But can we get these initiatives or lessons to be shared now at a bigger level? Because that's one point of it. It is costly for Edge to address all those elements associated with achieving a greening intervention. Because that's not their responsibility.
It's not.
Their responsibility is to deliver the coffee crop to the market. But as you are doing that, environment is suffering. It therefore means we need to have what you could almost call a fund to sustain greening initiatives. That fund, one might call it a cost. In the end, it's actually an investment in a sustainable sector.
Exactly.
For today, you might be saying, oh, we're putting 3 billion into this thing. But we're talking of 8 million bags now of coffee.
8.4.
Put a price into that. The 3 billion you're talking about of a fund to promote greening. We need to deliberately do it. Look at what he said. Farmers are moved from central to the west. Farmers are moved from the central to Mbale. Who discovered that Mbale is a destination? Edge. Edge said, I know this sector. A farmer in the central will just concentrate on their crop. They are not interested to move to Mbale. For what? But now, this man says, if these fellows went and saw what's taking place in Mbale, the next day they will be buying a resistant crop. The next day they will be digging bigger holes. But that is a cost.
Trenching.
Exactly.
That's an interesting one.
So you need to get to a point where you now recognize that a great sector like the coffee sector needs a very strong set of players in the entire value chain. Do you want good farmers? That's okay. But they need extension services.
Yeah.
They need agronomic practices. They need inputs that they cannot currently afford, because incentive is limited, because they are saying the current crop I'm using is okay, why should I buy you expensive one? Now, that's at the point of a farmer. At the point of age is also saying, you know, the people I deal with that I supply, they are now beginning to have premium aspects for a coffee produced in a certain way. But for me to go there, one, I need to know what those aspects are. I will know those aspects much more than government. So government had better work with me.
Exactly.
So that I pick those aspects and tell government that if we want coffee from Uganda to be premium, to be branded, these are the minimum requirements. Mr. Government, this thing is giving you 8.4 million bags. This thing is giving you the forex you are talking about. This is what it costs to translate what I've learned from the market into practice in the primary producers level.
Thank you, Charles.
So that entire value chain intervention
Yes.
needs a very strong participation of all players.
A robust one and comprehensive.
And should not be treated just as a cost.
Yes.
It should be treated as investment
Yes.
in the future prosperity of the sector.
Talk about investment. Viewers, you can be part of this discussion. It's a very, very important topic, especially for those that are nursing ambitions of joining the agricultural sector or those that are already sitting there, because what we are learning is that we can no longer do business as usual. I mean, you're going to actually lose money if you want to do coffee farming the way you've been doing it, or our grandparents did it. We've just heard in the montage, we saw, the gentleman is saying he can no longer do a simple hole. It has to be like the one of Matoke. You know, we saw, of course, already talking about having animals on the side, because the soils, I mean, we can all agree, most of the people that have been practicing agriculture, especially crop husbandry, that the soils are a bit, they are weakening, or they are, the fertility is actually reducing. So this then this becomes a very, very important subject and topic. So just take your notebooks, again, as usual, and your pens, and then let's learn. Today in the studio we have Edge, and Edge has already shared his story about the farmers that they are dealing with and what they are doing, or what they've been able to see. Now, Amos, that brings me to the question I want to put before you, because we've been talking about the cost, but now I want to move to the aspect of benefit or dividends out of, you know, this effort. Because in your submission earlier, you mentioned that farmers should look at that activity as a business. And we know farmers are rational people.
Correct.
Like other business people. And this show, by the way, is watched by a number of business people. Or those that are actually at least nursing ambitions to join business. So where is the benefit in, should I say, being green compliant or being environmentally sensitive in your production?
No, the benefits are very, very, very clear. And of course, I mean, the other gentleman in the video talked about the greening of the tree,
of the coffee.
So the greening we are talking about is not different from a farmer just loving to see his trees green with green leaves. So that alone, by using, and he mentioned that he was using manure, cow dung from the animals. So already, if you adopt that and leave the artificial fertilizer, because we know that artificial fertilizer will also spoil the soils and they're not very good for the environment. Some people might not want to talk about that, but
that's the reality.
That is the reality. So the benefit is that if every farmer can have access to the manure, then they also mentioned in that video, because I don't want to take this as my words. The lady, I think, is the one who mentioned that even the yield, even the beans inside. For coffee that is fertilized by organic manure, the beans, even the flavors. Now, we might be able to maintain the productivity or the yield per tree by using that. But we are missing out on the value or the quality or the speciality within that coffee. So that coffee should be taken as a speciality, probably organic. But do we have the prices for the organic coffees?
And I need to break this down for our viewers.
Yes.
Amos, if you allow me on that.
Yes.
Because specialty coffees are actually coffees that are sold for premium because they have certain attributes. And they are produced within certain conditions. And in this case, the condition is organic.
Yes.
Without artificial fertilizers, for that matter, and therefore it should fetch a premium. You can go on before I ask my next question.
So the benefit would have been that we are protecting the environment, because I told you from the beginning, the farmers know about the environment. So that is the first benefit, because they know we want our children and our grandchildren to be able to live here in the future. So that is the benefit. The other benefit is that we could even be able to maintain the yield by using the organic. But not very many farmers have access to the animals. There are very few that are privileged to have animals, and even those ones that, because I know all of them, I know that some of their farms, their gardens, they cannot use the manure they produce with their animals to fertilize all their farms. So there are parts where they use what? Artificial fertilizer. So we want to kind of get rid of that. So the other benefit is that if we can get, because some of our farmers now, for me as an exporter, because farmers tell me that, but I'm also pushing the agenda of finding specialty prices for those coffees.
Because that was going to be my next question.
Yes, because it is still difficult, but it's not something that cannot be done. So we are, because also the buyers would want to now come and then verify and confirm that actually, if you are talking organic, it is actually organic. If you are certified, then they know that now the certificate is there, then they can pay that price. But the process is rigorous, and I think we talked about the waiting. So you certify a farmer today, and the premiums are coming in a year's time.
Wow.
Or even getting the contracts for the certified coffees.
Yes.
So with the greening, we can have the environment better. We can have better yields if we went for the fertilizers. The food we eat will be, because in our coffees, for us we do the intercropping. So we have our matoke is there. Now just imagine if the matoke you are eating is always fertilized by what? Artificial fertilizers. So that food will not be...
It ends up in your system.
Yes. So if you have the greening, you have a good bunch of matoke, you have some cassava that is good, the beans you intercrop are healthy for your body. But most importantly, also you could be able to earn a premium on the coffee that you have done what? You have done organically. The problem is that, are we able to do enough quantities? Because when you tell a roaster that I might be able to do organic, then they say, how many containers will you do?
Will you be able to do? On that note, Amos, we're going to take a very short commercial break.
Yes.
Viewers, we're talking about greening, and we're looking at greening in agriculture, specifically coffee production, but it can be stretched to other spaces within the agriculture sector. In the next segment, for any questions and comments, please send them through. I've seen some have started coming through, so that we get to know more about this topic. It's the new norm of agriculture and other production processes. We need to learn, we need to understand it better. We'll pick it from there after this very short commercial break. Dear viewers, welcome back. It is still a Business Xray show, and we are talking greening today. We are looking at specifically the aspect of adaptation. I mean, we've all appreciated the fact that climate change has caught up with us, Now the issue is, how do we adapt? How do we stay in business? How do we stay in the game? I mean, we're not going to just leapfrog and become an industrial nation overnight. We are still dependent on agriculture for some time to come until we make the transition. But we have this reality with us. And in the studio today, we have the MD of Xray. It's a coffee export company. And he's working with a number of farmers in several parts of the country. And the message he's carrying today is how he has been able to impact the farmers under him to actually adapt to climate change by, you know, embracing practices that support, promote conservation of the environment. Now, before we went for the break, of course, you had, you know, made a case for the dividends, the benefits of actually being embracing greening. Yeah. And to that effect, I would like to do a follow-up before I bring in Charles on, you're not in this business alone. There are other players that are, you know, in the same business with you. The question is, one, what would it take to bring the others on board? And how are you able, you know, to carry forward when the others are actually doing the other thing their way?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Boji. It is difficult, but I have to say that in Uganda, when we talk about the coffee exporters, the other exporters that are doing things that are similar to what the Edge is doing, but there are also those that are not doing anything. And they also know that the environment might cripple our businesses. So if we just look at the business part and you say, okay, if the environment became very severe, we might have a season without harvesting coffee. But government, here my cry would go to government, and of course I will talk to the ABI guys to also. I know ABI is very crucial in this. We need to have a proper, I don't know if it is an agenda or a strategy as government, as a nation, to support the greening. Because you are not going to, the thing is not going away without action. We must be able to do something, and do something very, very seriously. Regulation, government has to come in, ABI must talk to other people or other partners. UCDA is also doing its part. UCDA should be able to talk to all of the coffee exporters. But of course it comes with, you know, people have to think, okay, where is the support coming from? How do we do this? But if government comes in with a policy or with an agenda and they say, now we need to see farmers supported on the greening part. Primary processors supported or given direction. And very key actually, that's something I was forgetting, is that the strategy is not to say that everybody must support the greening, but even the way we should be doing the greening or adopting, what are those actual things that we have to do, such that we do not find ourselves everybody doing greening in their own way. So are there proven activities? And I was talking to the, you know, before
we came on,
Yes, and I told you that there are trees we are planting that can work very well with the coffee. And there are those that we plant and they don't work with the coffee. So a farmer is told you today, plant tree A. After 5 years, the tree is affecting the coffee badly. They have to cut it down and plant again. But remember, while that tree might not be supporting the tree on the yield, the shade itself, there's a way the shade also supports. If the shade is moving from this side in the morning and the evening goes this side, it supports those trees in between there. You know, to get the heat not to be constant on them. So when you cut a tree, when the coffees are already grown, and you have to plant, and before it grows, you have another effect there. So a farmer might have started with a tree. By cutting it down, because it is not working, it is still going to affect the garden if it is, it is under too much heat. So we need that science. Is there someone in some research somewhere in government, scientists trying to look at this and saying, so this is this is what we do. And now we know. I'm sorry you are saying that we know that coffee is not just for the central and the west and the east. It is now for the whole country. Maybe there are some trees that might be able to work in Mbale and they don't affect the coffee, but those ones do not work in the central. Can we have that information? Maybe they will not work in the west. Maybe those will not work in the north. So such that we know that in the central, these are the trees, the shady trees. In the west, these are the shade trees. So this must be done. I mean, we cannot stress enough how important coffee is to the industry.
I hear you, Amos.
The intercropping, the food, that it supports the food for the family. You've heard the lady there saying that, with using organic fertilizer, they have food left over and they can even sell. So that means that even the food that might be coming to the market will be very good, healthy food for us. Instead of having all the food on the market having been pumped by inorganic.
Great submission, Amos. Just hold it there. Charles, he raises a very important point on structuring. And I know you are an advocate of formal operations.
Very true.
Because it seems the way we're tackling the climate change discussion is probably from sometimes, not everyone of course, from the halls in Geneva and some of these capitals of the world. But how do we, because when we talk about adaptation, it's not just with the farmer. How are our research institutions adapting to that? How is policy adapting to that?
Very true.
So that we're able to give guidance to the people, across the entire value chain. He's talking about coffee. It can also apply to matoke and other agricultural products.
All the others.
Yes.
Yeah. It's an interesting submission, and that's why this show is such a beautiful show. When you get a practitioner coming to the show and begins to shine light in some of these words that we use generically, you discover that we don't know some of these words. He has just painted the word greening. Greening, what does it mean? You are dealing with coffee. What does that mean? A coffee farmer says, I have this acreage of mine. It must have this number of plants. If I bring a tree here, I'm going to lose a certain number of trees. Number two, the ones next to that tree are not going to be as productive as the ones outside the tree area. Now, which greening tree do I go for? That's science. And that means we should cease using these words in a casual way. We should professionalize interventions of this nature.
Yes.
Bearing in mind that the person today you call a farmer is rational. And he'll tell you, you know what? I've been doing thing here for a long time. Do you know what? I'm abandoning coffee. I'm going to livestock. Opportunity cost has come in. He has weighed the reward from 1 acre using coffee as compared to piggery. And he has left. You can't take him to court. In effect, what I'm driving at here is the greening concept must begin to become a very structured, well analyzed and understood area, crop by crop. It can be for tea, it can be for coffee, it can be for other crops. We need to appreciate it in that deep sense. And if we do that, we are also preparing ourselves for now what Amos was saying, the concept of confirming that your coffee is organic, your coffee is a specialty coffee. It is hard to achieve that using age. Do you know how many farmers are you supporting today?
We have 9,000.
9,000, look at that. You put this heavy burden on an individual to try and work with 9,000, Good enough, ABI is giving some bit of relief. Should ABI now say, you know what, we have proven the concept. Please government, please Uganda, run with what you have demonstrated to you. Yes. Immediately this man, if you see him reducing from 9,000 to 1,000, you can't blame him. He's a rational operator. Yeah. So in effect, I'm talking of a situation where we begin to have long-term view in these sectors that we call the strategic sectors for the country. There will be greening in tourism. Yes. Tourism with greening, where in the hotel you should have a chair made out of a log with its back still on. No whatever, no, you know, you bring just logs. So true. All those are areas we need to give better and stronger attention as a country. But to achieve that, interact with people in the middle of the game. Yeah. And that's why, much as a nation, we tend to concentrate more on the primary fellow, but also in there we talk of input like seedlings. Yeah. You need to talk to the other players in the value chain to get a better appreciation on what you should be doing on the ground. And I can say almost the same thing with the PDM. Yeah. We are telling these fellows to go to all types of planting of crops and what have you. We are not talking with the middle players in the value chains of those commodities. Those are key. And I thank Amos so much. You see how he speaks his thing. The fellow is plain and direct. But tomorrow, if you don't see him supporting the 9,000 farmers, you just know that he has done his best. He has
done his part.
Yeah.
Very interesting. Now, Amos, I'll come back to you. Again, I had again a montage from one of your staff. It was talking about productivity increasing in certain areas as a result of some farmers adopting certain methods. Yes. Because greening is not just about shades. You're talking about things like you rightly put it, manure. Yes. It's the thing of planting. I don't know the English word, the bisagazi, elephant grass.
Elephant grass, yes.
And other activities of controlling soil erosion.
Yes. And trenching, and
exactly.
Mulching.
Exactly. So he's talking about the increase in the yield.
Yes.
How does that come about? And again, paint for us that picture for someone who is watching, because I know you've talked about the cost, what it takes.
Yes.
But again, as a way of looking at the benefits, because there has to be that benefit.
Yes. It has to be.
For someone to make that leap.
So, when trees are planted, when the coffee trees are planted, all they need is water. And by the way, coffee trees do not need a lot of water. I've just discovered it recently that it's not a water
thirsty plant.
Yes, not that much. But all you need to do, when you adopt the mulching, for example, you preserve the water. When you adopt that bigger holes, in fact, that technology is what we are telling all our farmers now. Because first of all, when you are selling them the
resistant seedlings,
it is a cost. So we are telling them that when you plant that tree in that bigger hole, you have 90 to 95% resistant. So you will have survival rate of 95%. You find that someone has planted 100 trees. Some people get even 100%, you know, with those holes. Remember, you have paid money, so you do not want to lose money. And you also talked about the cost of digging the hole. The cost of digging a hole is not small. You've paid money for the seed, so you really want it to grow into a plant. Now, when you do the trenching, and you plant when we do the trenching, then we plant the elephant grass on the trenches. Those are the ones that some of the farmers use for feeding their animals. Because you also just saw in that video that the farmer was zero grazing as well. So there is even no more land where to put the what. So we needed now to tell them
to work with what you have.
So the trench, on top of the trench, you plant now elephant grass. So they cut that and give the animals. If the farmer doesn't have animals, then they cut and mulch. So what that does is to preserve water for the trees. You have mulched, even if it is a drought season, the soil will be moist, so the tree keeps finding water to feed its beans or its fruits. So now the beans come out, the coffee beans come out when they are healthy. When they are healthy, they become heavier.
That is the screen,
Yes,
the size
the
of the
screen.
bean.
Yes, so then that is when you start to talk about farmers producing just 5% of screen 12.
I hear you.
Or even 10% would be a good result. Finding them, in fact, in Masaka we are seeing farmers getting 30% of screen 18, 25, 20. That is a good, that means that farmer looked after their what?
Again, for our viewers who may need a bit of explanation on the screens for coffee, screen 18 is like the premium. It's
The premium.
And then they keep coming down,
Yes.
you know, to the smaller ones. And of course, what Amos is telling us is that the size of that bean determines a lot, is dependent a lot on the conditions under which the coffee was grown. But it also fetches a premium price.
Yes.
Because the bigger the bean, the better the price for
The
coffee.
better the price and the better the flavor.
So it's good to adapt for a farmer to actually adapt in this to these price practices.
So now there, in fact, you might see, you know, there's looking at trees, and you see that a tree has got a lot of cherries, but the cherries are small. Then the other tree has reasonable less, but bigger.
Bigger, yeah.
And most important, that the inside beans are actually there.
Yes.
So someone harvests 1 tin of red cherries, so that might be the same weight as the other. But when you dry, the coffee that was fed well, or the tree that was fed well, the other, what we call outturn, the one who dries 1 tin, or let's say 100 kilograms of well-fed coffee, you see them getting even outturn on the Chiboko level, 60, 65% outturn. Then the one who has not fed is in the 50s, even 48. So there the farmer is not benefiting.
I hear you. Actually, Amos, we are seeing nowadays farmers who even get the cherries, they harvest them. On drying, they realize there's nothing inside.
Yes.
And it's happening a lot nowadays.
Yes, yes. So if you did not mulch, if you didn't have any trenches, if you did not do anything, those things of the greening, they might even ripe, but you don't have beans inside. So already those are benefits, physical benefits of greening that farmers will get once they adopt. Only that the manure needs.
And just to give a parallel, when you do the groundnuts, you get the pods carrying seeds inside. The pod may look big. As you dry that thing, the pod will still look big. You open the pod, you discover a very tiny ring called this seed inside. And that one in the market is not wanted.
That is exactly what will happen to the coffee,
industry.
Correct.
So viewers, again, it is still the Business Xray show, and we are talking greening. I need to repeat this. It is an advert of sorts. And please bear with me, viewers, that we can no longer do agriculture the way we've been doing it. Because I think for the first time, like what Amos is saying and Charles, we are seeing crops, you know, bearing fruits, and inside there's no fruit actually. But you've put in the time, you've put in the sweat, you put in the money to actually do. And I want to speak especially to my office and corporate farmers. Because it's us who feel. Yes, the farmer down there also feels the pain, but the pain of a corporate farmer who sometimes even borrows to put in the farm can be twice that. So it's very important that you actually send those questions through. I've seen some that have come through. We have Amos here. He's directly dealing with farmers, but at the same time, he also deals with the market. That is also a very important aspect, Charles. Because he knows what's happening the other side and what the market wants.
Correct.
I come to you, Charles.
I would want to underscore 2 points here in today's discussion. One of them is that the Amos we are talking about here, one time was supplying major coffee exporters. He has grown and grown, and because of his interest in the sector, he has kept on scaling and scaling until now he is himself an anchor of a value chain.
Yeah.
In other words, he is now the one who determines also how the value chain keeps growing and multiplying and becoming even better. What I'm driving at here is that as you get into any engagement, even in this greening, especially in the greening crusade, interest, commitment, seeing your intervention beyond money is a big story.
Yes.
When you listen to Amos speak, you see a man who is not just saying, my profits last year, my profits, he is talking about how the entire sector could turn out to be a beautiful area to be in, so that he does not have to reconsider saying, well, I don't have to be a coffee exporter, I can be a beef exporter, and nobody will stop him from doing that. So that's one thing that I thought I needed the viewers to appreciate in this show today. The other one is that there is no end to improvement in any sector that you are in. And that improvement is not just going to come from some isolated party somewhere out there. The players who are in the game will know the pain points. Talk to Amos and he will tell you what it means to have a cherry of coffee which is looking ripe, and you dry it and you open it and there's nothing inside. It pains.
It does indeed.
So that is the other thing that I think we need to be able to appreciate when we are building the entire private sector of this country.
Okay, on that note, I have someone here is saying, good afternoon. I'm of the view that all stakeholders still have a big task on educating the farmers locally on seed selection, spacing and techniques and markets. And I think he's trying to talk about the entire value chain, talking about the collective responsibility.
Yes.
It is. And Charles, just to underscore that point, we are going big scale on parish development model. The farmers are going to get into a point where everybody is saying, plant this, plant this, plant this. This conversation today has illustrated some of the things we need to put our attention to as we get to work with numerous farmers on a big scale. Ensure that you intervene also in the medium-sized players, especially on the marketing aspects and market access aspects, so that as the farmer is doing whatever they are doing, they need to appreciate that ultimately the market has got its standards. And if you don't meet those standards, you could have gotten money from government, from a church, from a relative. It doesn't matter. They will not give you the reward for that effort.
Great.
So it is so vital that these kind of lessons we're picking through ABI, through specific value chains, we share them out and use them to improve the interventions that we do with our farmers.
Great, great. And I can see the kind of questions that are coming through where people are actually looking for more information. Because I have one here is saying cow dung alone is not enough as a fertilizer. It still misses certain ingredients. And he wants more information on what to do, you know, to get the ingredients elsewhere and which plants. And it goes back to the point that Amos was raising, that our research institutions need to come on board. It needs to be structured. That if I'm making the migration from inorganic fertilizers, I also have, you know, researched organic options.
Correct. And then even the cow dung is not as beneficial until it has decomposed to a certain stage.
Yes.
Now, if your cow dung is not fully decomposed and you are rushing to take it to the crop, you could actually get a negative effect. So apart from the nutrient content of the dung, it's even just how to prepare the dung to be useful for your crop. Very key indeed.
Without a doubt.
Those that person asked a right question, but there are issues to do with soil testing now, things that we need to be doing. So if you're a farmer out there, very, very important that you know what your soil lacks, what it has more, and then you start to do what? Feed, and of course, talked about the way you prepare the manure. So he's asking for more information, but I'm sure he can find that more information out there. So, but that is also the other thing about farmers taking the farming as a business
Yes.
seriously.
Yes.
So have you researched on what you want to do? Like you said, you know, so if you are going to use cow dung, when is it best to be used? How is it? So those are things that we need to do. Don't just go and say, they told me cow dung, and I do what?
do that.
Yes. You know, they told me fertilizer. There are people up country, they are doing their normal organic manure. We have some women groups in some of our farmers that are doing their own from grass and you know, rotten stuff and food, and they sell those to each other in between there. So those things that we need to kind of promote, because one of the group had an issue. The issue is transport, because that money was always heavy, and we have not got enough capacity to support them in saying that their manure works very well, but to transport from, for example, they are in Masaka, if someone in Pidgey wants it, they are bulky. So the price becomes
something
completely different. Yes.
Yeah.
But those are things maybe we need to look at. Maybe the scientists can come and support and see how they can make them lighter, or we just go ahead and support them with the transport or some kind of truck, because they are doing it, and it could be very, very supportive in getting rid of the inorganic fertilizer, at least some percentage.
And what I pick from your submission is the knowledge and the exposure of these people. Because right now, you can't do anything by default, including agriculture now. One, you need to know your soil, like you rightly put it. Do the soil testing and say, these ingredients are missing in my soil, this is where I get them. And these are, but again, it means someone up there in the science world, in the research world, has to come in,
to
you
give
know,
us
to fill
that
the gap.
backup,
Exactly.
to say that what you are doing is right. It is backed up by this information.
Exactly, because the key question now then becomes, is the agricultural researcher picking the signal of climate change?
They have picked, I'm sure they should.
Is the policy maker picking the signal of climate change? Is the development partner picking the signal of climate change? And then the farmer, because the farmer will pick it very fast, because it impacts him directly.
Correct.
If I planted a certain number of seeds expecting a certain amount and I don't get, definitely that message is delivered in capital letters. Yes. So just to, again, as we near the end of this interface, Amos, before I bring in Charles again, just walk us through some of, you know, the challenges that you've had to deal with as you make this happen, and how have you dealt with them? Because you look quite dedicated to making this work, whatever the circumstances.
No, but we don't have an alternative. I mean, for me, my and what we tell our team is, I mean, why not? I mean, what else are we going to do? We are going to. There is so much information about coffee that whether you leave it today or you come out of that business, I can assure that in 50 years there will be people in there. So for me to walk out of coffee and go to another industry would be the same thing. So, but there are challenges. I mean, there are, for example, I mean, the first challenge we had when we started telling people about these things. You go up country and what you would call the serious farmers do not want to join the groups. So you say we have to make a groups. And the serious farmers,
they want to play alone.
No, like the serious ones, what I mean by serious one would be like probably farmers that are known on a village that Boji is a coffee farm. And so Chichi is a coffee farm. So you come and call them and say, we have a training we want to talk to you about improving yield, and those two don't come. So the ones who come are the ones that are expecting sodas here and there. But so that was a big challenge. Now, but for us, we insisted. So the ones that came are the ones we said, now these ones who came are the ones that are interested in what we want to deliver. So we insisted on them. Then they started implementing, and I can tell you now we are overwhelmed by those serious farmers. Now they come after we have done what, which is a good thing. So the challenge is that our people do not take things seriously, and you have to bear with them because they'll tell you, there have been so many trainings here. I didn't think you were going to be this serious until I saw the demo there, until the other farmer who normally doesn't grow anything his coffee started to improve. You know, because some of the farmers that had coffee, we were telling them about pruning and stamping, and so a farmer comes and says, even Boji's coffee, that man never is even improving. I hear he's coming to your group.
Yes.
And we're like, yes, we are telling them what to do, and they adopt and they have improvement now. So there is this general thing of people not being serious about new technologies or improving, or people wanting free things, but then people taking communing as something that for us to come for a meeting, there must be something to eat or some transport or those are things that
even when it benefits them.
Yes, even when it benefits them. So there was a challenge there until I told you about those groups that meet every other day. When we started to get people rolling in that culture and thinking that actually when I miss on knowledge. So then people started to become very, very serious. So you find they are the one who now we're saying now we have to be here at 4.
When is our next session?
Yes. so that was a big challenge. Then the other, of course, the other challenge now we have, because I have to say we have come to the end of our project with the ABI. We have maybe another 6 months, and then we get this overwhelming interest coming, which is very good, but there are steps they have missed. So you feel like, I want to go back now. These new people who come need to be taken through the same kind of training.
Correct.
Or polished a bit, because some of them are farmers that are serious, they want improvement. They need to go through that. But the good thing what we have done with ABI, again, ABI, we have to thank them, because we have left our agents or community facilitators, we call them community, who have been trained on the agronomy and on the marketing. And of course you talked about something about...
before you go to that, Amos, I really want to pick this question.
Yes.
Is for one of our viewers. You know, they are also now in class. They are learning.
Yes.
He's called David. He's from Barara. He's saying, I've planted coffee seedlings together with banana trees. And I have planted them in a bare land, mulched it, put in manure, but it has failed to grow compared to those ones in the plantations. I don't know what he means by the plantations, but you understand better. So what advice do you give him?
So now there are situations there that we need to think about. So he has planted. Did he plant at the right time? Is he planting the coffee tree with a banana tree in the same hole?
Because I know
which one is which?
That's a good question.
So the other advice I normally give to our farmers that for me to give you an advice on an explanation, if I have pictures maybe I can have, but it is also very key for our farmers now that we are saying they must be commercial. If your farm is in Mbarara, is in Mpigi, is in Gomba, is in Kabulamaido, find an agronomist around there, nearby. Someone that can support you. We know that governments have these people. Get them to come and visit your what? Your farm. Such that when you talk of what is happening, someone can feel exactly. You professionals, phone calls, it might not work. You will not know. So you get the physicality of someone who understands that actually this is what I did. So I know I wouldn't, if someone has mulched and did all that and the trees have not done well, the coffees have not done well, I can't understand. But if someone is on the ground, we might be able to support.
Thank you, Amos.
Yes.
Charles, I have one for you. Time is not on our side, but many questions are still coming in. I have Adams, he's from Bundibujo. He's saying, thanks for the program. How can government have all stakeholders involved in extension work? And he's narrating his plight. He says, I deal in cocoa, but we have the same problem of low production being caused by, among others, climate change and other factors. Now, the challenge is saying you have one key stakeholder putting all the effort in extension work, but once the season comes, other buyers and stakeholders come and take.
Exactly. Exactly.
What do you say to that? I know Amos has already...
Exactly. For a business person, first and foremost, he is not having what you call a budget line for philanthropy, which is endless. Because do you know that philanthropy, to just improve the coffee sector, can eat all your profits? Philanthropy can take all its profits.
Yes.
He cannot allow that to happen.
Yeah.
Yes.
So what he does is to now say, what can I do with maybe another partner like ABI to just demonstrate that the thing works? And hopefully appropriate government structures will pick it from there. In other words, there is always a role for government in economic interventions in this country. And that role should be structured by, first and foremost, talking with people who know the value chain. Because government is not a specialty in any value chain. But this man, he wakes up, he talks, he eats, he drinks, everything is about coffee. Talk with him, talk to his colleagues, you discover what works. So government needs to appreciate that whenever there is any intervention on livelihoods, don't just concentrate only on the poor fellows down there. Have an investment fund for all the other aspects of various economic value chains.
Because you have Amos here, one
Correct.
person impacting over 1,000 farmers.
Correct.
I mean,
And many times when government says we are doing something in private sector, the easiest to mention is access to credit.
yeah.
But access to credit
Alone.
is not in itself a sufficient bullet. The many aspects we have talked about here are so key and they matter a lot.
I hear you.
And then just, I know we have no time. When he talked about attitude change, I just felt, what a man, what a communication, I mean a message. Attitude change for the majority of the people who are saying want a benefit today. Transport, soda, very tough. But two, if you have something that makes these people to move and come there, it had better be quality business development services. And they can see those ones. Those ones are not just a matter of ticking and saying, we're in a certain hotel, they turned up and we did this thing. They will just say, if it comes again next time, I will not only come alone, I will come with 3 of my staff. When are you coming again? Quality BDS.
I know Charles,
to
you have a lot of
businessman.
experience in that space.
Correct. It is something that resonates. You don't even need to oversell it.
Beautiful, beautiful. Thank you. And viewers, looks like we've come to the end of our interface today. We've been talking greening and specifically looking at coffee production, because in the studio we've had Amos. Amos is from Edge Trading Company. They are exporters of coffee and they're dealing with thousands of farmers, supporting them to actually embrace greening and adapt, to climate change. And I want to end with a question here. Someone is saying, I planted coffee 4 years ago and I always get problems with sunshine. Now, these are some of the issues we've been addressing. Of course, this show is going to be uploaded online so you can access it and learn the techniques you can use to actually mitigate or adapt to the new normal of actually riding the storm under climate change and still stay in the business of agriculture. I've been your host, Charles Boji. In the studio, again, we had our guest, Amos from Edge Trading Company, Charles from Enterprise Uganda. This show, we thank ABI, Enterprise Uganda, Ministry of Finance, Planning and Economic Development for all the support. Until next time, have a good evening. God bless.